With increased scrutiny around the world, business travelers specifically face double pressure. What I'm talking about? I'm talking about business travelers that need to be somewhere and business requires them to be there. Circumstances may differ, but I would like to present this video as extended consultation. As a matter of fact, at the end of this video, I will dedicate certain part to red flags, how to avoid definite mistakes when you arrive to Canada on a business visa, how to avoid mistakes by applying for business visa. But let's dive into what business visa is, the subject of this video. The business visa in general, intended for people who would like to attend events or participate in business development. Not necessarily already existing business, maybe something in potential in the future, but also visiting partners. As a matter of fact, I would like to read what activities government prescribe in regulations as allowable for business visitors, and you can make your own judgment. Attending business meetings and conferences, check. Negotiating contracts on partnerships, check. Exploring investment opportunities, which is very valuable for many investment partners who arrive to Canada and participate in joint venture development, for example. Conducting market research. Well, it would be foolish to start your operation somewhere without conducting market research first, right? Meeting with Canadian clients, suppliers, or investors. Participating in trade shows or exhibitions, and receiving short-term business training. Last one may surprise you because coming for business training rarely fall under business category, but it is. So, why it's important for people to apply the right way? Well, first, let's identify who can apply. Well, you apply for business visa if you have your main source of income outside Canada. This is very important distinction. Income outside Canada. You're not getting employed in Canada. That's position number 2. You're not seeking employment in Canada, because some people falling into the trap when they talk to very unscrupulous people, consultants or legal advisors or even lawyers, because sometimes their service is not that up to standards. So your activities must be temporary. I'm talking about activities in Canada. That's the nature of your business visit. And you're not entering Canadian labor market. Worth repeating. Now, since we know what business visa is, it's useful to understand who can apply for business visa. Again, referring to regulations and internal memos of IRCC, I would like to give you a list of those who can use this program. Well, some of them obvious: entrepreneurs and startup founders. Of course, you need to be here, at least for a short period of time. Foreign company executives and directors. Again, don't be confused with work permits, like visa for executives or special LMIA-based permits or intra-company transferees. Those are separate, and we have special videos for those. Investors and shareholders of the company. Of course, if you have a minor amount of shares, if you're minority shareholder, it's very hard for you to convince IRCC that you have to be here. But let's say you substantial owner of the company or majority shareholder, of course, your presence time to time required. Sales representatives and consultants. Those fall under visa category if they come in temporarily on a short-term basis. International partners of Canadian companies, and we have plenty of those clients who actually come into Canada on a temporary basis to participate in board meetings, in negotiations, maybe even hire some local Canadian staff if we're talking about high-profile executives. Now, coming back to what I promised you. How to prevent red flags? What are those red flags? The major red flag is to avoid dual intent. What I mean by that? Sometimes people file an application frivolously, and that's exactly the problem with massive rejection if we're talking about business visa, because people approach it just like any other visa. And that's the biggest mistake in judgment. Why it's important to avoid dual intent? What dual intent is? Every visitor must leave Canada if intention is to visit Canada temporarily. Sounds obvious, right? But in fact, many people neglect that approach and just file application and see if it sticks. Not a good strategy. So dual intent is always compared by officers at consulates around the world. They train for that. They have special manual how to identify dual intent. And why dual intent is important for Canada? Canada is a country of immigrants. Canada is a country where people can actually find a way to stay and transition into permanent residency. So officers assess very carefully if this or that visitor, even business visitor, possess that kind of risk. You might be interested to know what other reasons for refusals officers actually exercise. So let me line up for you major reasons for refusal. Unclear purpose of visit. Well, I told you to be specific and be very careful in identifying itinerary and all the reasons for you to be here. And don't forget, it must be temporary. Activities resemble work rather than business visits. Well, that's what dual intent partially interconnected with, right? Like if you intend to work, intend to perform certain duties that can be or will be rather identified as work, most likely your application will be rejected. Insufficient proof of ties to home country. Well, if you have nowhere to return to, if you have no employment left, if you have no business interests left, if you have no property ties, no family ties, of course you possess a risk of staying here. Weak travel history. All of a sudden, without traveling anywhere in the world, without going for vacations, going on business, having visas in multiple countries, you suddenly apply for business visa in Canada. Of course, that raises concern. How to avoid it? Listen further. Lack of business documentation. Well, that's exactly how all these things interrelated, interconnected. If you don't have a purpose, how can you prepare documentation satisfying the officer in that particular purpose, right? So that is part of our preparation for business visitors. And inconsistent or incomplete application forms. I combine these reasons together. Why it's inconsistent sometimes? Well, people say different things about motivation, about their intention, about their whereabouts, about their background. It's inconsistency. Very close and thin line with misrepresentation, by the way. You can watch our video about misrepresentation and what that thing carries. 5-year ban, let me remind you. So, incomplete application forms. Well, if you send something and you're not satisfying immigration officer with complete set of documents, application may be returned or rather rejected. I always tell people, don't try patience of immigration officer. Unlikely with this workload, officer will return application as incomplete, as old days, as we remember from 90s and the early 2000s. Of course, it was more flexible relationship towards applicants, and definitely attitude was different. Now the officers of IRCC looking for a reason to refuse you. So to avoid that, to streamline your process, to guarantee maximum success rate for your application, not to screw up your business and not to, betray your business interest in Canada, we always suggest to start with proper business consultation. You can find the link below. And of course, if you have any specific questions, you can either type in the comment section below or contact us, and we will be happy to provide consultation on a private basis. As always, if you like this video, share it with someone you think may benefit from this. Subscribe to our channel so you can bring more useful content to you, and stay safe by staying informed.